In recent years, your focus seems to have shifted from speaking up about reform in Islam to speaking up against injustice in general. So, are you done reforming Islam?
Gosh, I think there's a long way to go for reform within Islam to happen. And I must say that you're right, I have evolved, if I can put it that way, or matured just from the subject of Islamic reform to the much more universal necessity of moral courage. Why? Well, first of all, because moral courage means doing the right thing in the face of your fears. And let's get real. In every human community around the world, Muslim, non-Muslim, we have abuse of power. We have corruption because we as human beings are imperfect. And so as I came to appreciate in the 15 years that I have been advocating for reform within Islam, it is not just Muslims who need to reform. Yes, we absolutely do need to change ourselves. As the Quran says, God does not change the condition of a people until they change what is inside themselves. But the Quran says this not just about Muslims, it says this about everybody. And so, for example, the hate mail that I receive these days is not from Muslims. It is from a militant segment of the new atheists, because they're very angry with me that even though I wrote a book called The Trouble Within Islam Today, that I have not gone all the way to abandon religion. In fact, my faith has deepened by engaging with my critics. And many new atheists are upset with me about that. And so I receive, frankly, not serious death threats, but wishes of death from some atheists. I bring this up because it shows that, first of all, even people who consider themselves rational can act very irrationally. That is the human condition. And so even within a community like the new atheists, you need moral courage. Doing the right thing in the face of your fears, fear of being judged, to be wrong by your own people, and not just fear of other things like losing your job. So until, in this case, atheists stop harassing and bullying and ridiculing Muslims for having faith, many Muslims will ask themselves, well, why should I reform if this is the way I'm being told, to grow up? That is why moral courage is necessary in all human communities. No one community is an island. The famous Israeli peace activist and writer Amos Oz once pointed out in his wonderful essay, How to Cure a Fanatic, he pointed out that no man is an island. We are all peninsulas. Part of us are attached to our traditions and our customs, but the other part of us looks towards the ocean for new horizons. And if we can understand one another in those in-between spaces, then we can actually see each other for our human complexity. And to do that means speaking truth to your ego, and not just to the external powers outside. That is why moral courage is necessary universally.
So, can moral courage be taught?
Well, I am gambling, if you will. I'm Muslim and I don't gamble with money, but I am gambling that it can be taught. In fact, I teach moral courage at 2 universities now, New York University and the University of Southern California, and also at an innovation lab. And we will see in a generation what my students have done with their moral courage. But I must say this, moral courage is not a new idea. It was articulated beautifully by Robert F. Kennedy back in the 1960s when he went to South Africa. And he said to white students, look, I am a white man, he said. I have been fighting racial injustices in my own country of America for many, many years. I am here to say that white students must also rise up and speak truth to power. And that will require moral courage, he said. But I am not coming to you telling you this as an outsider. I am coming to you as a citizen of the world. And when he articulated this idea of moral courage, he was really talking about people like Gandhi. Not because Gandhi was a peace activist. That's not what made him morally courageous. It was because he was willing to speak truth to his fellow Hindus, and of course was killed for it by a Hindu fundamentalist. And subsequently, we have people like Mandela, who, not because he was a peace activist, was he morally courageous, but because he forgave his prison warden. And in so doing, Mandela spoke truth to his own ego and said, enough of the revenge, enough of the hostility. We must forgive in order to move forward. So there is a long tradition of icons of justice who have exhibited moral courage. And that's why I do believe that it is possible for a new generation to do the same, because a precedent has already been set, and other human beings have shown that it is doable. Therefore, why not us?
On your YouTube channel, Moral Courage TV, you show ordinary people with their stories. What story has inspired you the most?
We have so many stories on Moral Courage TV that I'm proud of. But just to give you an example of the diversity of stories. On the one hand, we have the story of a young woman, Indonesian, Muslim, feminist, named Saktia, who wears hijab and who is a comedian. And she makes fun of the jihadists. She is not afraid for her life in that way. You know what she was afraid of? She was afraid that her parents would not accept what she has chosen to do with her voice and her life. And she actually wrote to me many years ago to say, Irshad, how do I convince my father that it's okay for me to choose my destiny? After mentoring her in moral courage, she spoke with her father about all of this, and to this day, her father is so proud of Saktia that now he says to her, you make sure that you tell everybody what your last name is, because I want them to know you are my daughter. Whew. On the other hand, we have the story of TJ, who is an American man, father of two, used to be a neo-Nazi, used to recruit young white people to the white supremacy movement, and realized that this was not the way to bring up his two sons, and voluntarily left the movement, and now actually rescues young recruits to the white supremacy cause. And so he does this while putting his life on the line. And there's an ethical question here. Should he be doing this while he still has his two sons with him? Because, of course, his sons then are in danger as well from those who want to kill TJ. So again, you can see that not only is there a wide range of, quote, ordinary, extraordinary people whose stories we tell, but there is also no easy answer to the lives that they lead. We struggle. We struggle to do the right thing. And with every choice that we make, a new question arises. But guess what? That is the beauty of life. That is the beauty of freedom, is that its promise is that from every choice we make, we grow. No other way of being allows us to grow as consistently as making choices that challenge us. And as long as we believe we are doing the right thing, and we are open to changing our minds based on new experiences and better arguments down the road, I think we are realizing our full humanity.
Okay, so what are your plans for the future? Will there be a follow-up to your book, Allah, Liberty and Love?
I think my next book will be about the caves in which we all live. And you know, it's often pointed out that the New York Times once called me Osama bin Laden's worst nightmare. And bin Laden lived in a cave. But I've come to learn that most of us, as human beings, live in metaphorical caves of our own. And we are afraid to come out of those tribal mindsets because we fear being judged by our own people, not just by others. And my next book, I think, will be about how we can develop the moral courage to emerge from our caves and see new possibilities, not just for the way we live, but also for the contributions that we can make to this one shot at life that most of us have been given. So I think it's going to be a tough for people to read a book like this because it will challenge them. But frankly, I can't see using my life in any other way than to do the tough things. Challenge excites me.
So if you look at the world today, what does the world need most? Allah, liberty, or love?
Without a doubt, I would say love. And I myself have experienced liberty without love. I remember when I was getting ready to release my book, Allah, Liberty, and Love, I was in such a burnt out stage in my life that I actually collapsed just before one of the biggest interviews of my life and was rushed to the hospital. And it happens that that night was the signature event of my book tour and it had to be canceled. And the next day, I received a bouquet of flowers from the woman who was going to moderate, who was going to facilitate this event. And her card read, "Irshad, liberty is wonderful, but please now focus on the love part of your message." And she meant, love yourself enough to take care of yourself so that you can continue to advocate for liberty and so that Allah can continue to have faith in you and not just your faith in Allah. So yes, the world needs more love.